Thank you. Just after 3 p.m. on January 24th, we have the agenda in front of us. Just do the simple land acknowledgement, and then we'll go into the adoption of the agenda. Thank you to the guests for coming today. The District of Sechelt is located on the traditional and unceded territory of the Sechelt Nation. We respect the histories, language, and culture of the people of the Sechelt Nation, whose presence continues to enrich our community. And I'd like to add giving thanks to the Sechelt for sharing their home with me and my family. Thank you. So call to order, council, and a declaration of conflict, if there is any. And then we have the adoption of the agenda. So we have an agenda presented to us in front of us, just looking for an adoption. So first and a seconder, please. Councilor Rowe, Councilor Shepherd, all in favor of the agenda in front of us. Thank you. And we have the delegation to present today. Scredo, obviously, welcome for coming. So obviously the two of you are going to speak, or the three of you? Okay, great. Two of you will speak. So right up with the microphone, as you know. So I guess you'll just have to bring a second chair up there and turn it on. Okay.
On. Mickey McCartney, Chair Scredo. And first of all, I'd just like to thank Mayor Henderson and the esteemed councillors for the opportunity to meet with you today. Scredo has a new strategic plan for 24-26, which we believe demonstrates a comprehensive and strategic approach to economic development, collaboration, transparency, and with our 2024 work plan, provide a solid foundation for Scredo's work, which will set the stage for economic growth and prosperity in the region. And we hope that you'll see that it's aligned with local governments' strategic plans as well. And today we will be seeking your collaborative input and engagement around securing funding, receiving feedback on the work plan, feedback on partnership opportunities, and discussion and support around recruiting new directors for Scredo. And then we'll pass it over to Colin, which I could probably just sit in the back. Is that okay?
I mean, we'll see if they have questions of you, but if you want to, you're more comfortable back there, we may call you forward again, but if you're more comfortable, sure. And Colin, if you can bring the mic closer to you. Great. And
good.
Yeah. As long as council can hear you, I'm good. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mickey, and thank you, Mayor and Council and Chair. Grateful for the opportunity to be here today with you. I do want to begin just by acknowledging that Scredo's work does take place on the ancestral territories of the Squamish and Sechelt nations, and we are grateful to be hosted by them here, and we aspire to live up to their standards of community economic development that were here until they were disrupted. Today, as Mickey alluded to, just want to work you through a bit of an overview of what brings us to this point, what brings us to this conversation, touching on some of that context, past and present, as well as the strategic plan that our board has put together for 2024 through 2026, the 2024 work plan, and some next steps. As you may or may not be aware, the Scredo is an arm's length entity that works with a service agreement for the 4 local governments of the Lower Sunshine Coast, and we are in our second service agreement, the third year of it, 2021 through 2025. It has 7 key mandate areas that run the gamut, from workforce development to investment attraction and regional collaboration. The way that work shows up in community, just to give you some quick examples. We talk about, unfortunately the screen is covering that, but maybe we could move the window just up to the top right instead, or the bottom, right. So we do a lot of work focusing on buying local and encouraging people to keep it coastal, as the campaign says. In one of those programs that we ran recently, we featured Salish Soils and Sunshine Coast Air, working with our partners at Loco BC, doing an assessment of their procurement and employment practices, assisting them with crafting that impact story as a way to demonstrate to the public the importance of spending our money locally. And then we're able to take those stories and promote them province-wide. Provincial nominee program, the regional pilot program, we do some coordinated service delivery with the province. There's a fantastic entrepreneur here in town, Gabenga Iremi, and his family from Nigeria, who opened up Workbay Tech Hub. You may have also seen Food Bay, that is their newest spinoff. And so a tremendous example of how we're able to bring in entrepreneurs, their families, and contribute as they invest in our shared future here on the coast. And just right now, actually, there's another woman here from China, Wei, who's looking to set up a yoga studio and wellness center. She's looking for commercial space right now. And so if anybody has ideas and wants to talk to me about 1,000 square feet afterwards, she'd be grateful and I'd be grateful. Livelihood entrepreneurs, we think often about lowering barriers to participation across the livelihoods spectrum. And this year we were able to partner with the BC Association for Farmers Markets through a program we called Hatch and Hype that really is about helping these first stage entrepreneurs get their first products to market and learn about that experience of being at a market and in whatever way entrepreneurship shows up in their life. In doing that through the Seashell Farmers Market as well as the Davis Bay Market, we were able to provide market opportunities for more than 50 livelihood entrepreneurs last summer. When we think about investment attractions, sometimes it's about starting new businesses. It's also about making sure that we're reinvesting in our downtown. We did some business succession planning with members of the SDBA, focused really, like I say, on reinvestment in the downtown core, providing one-on-one support to them to do that business analysis. Many of them find themselves at a stage where they're ready to get out, but haven't really ever thought about how to package it and how to sell that and take it to market. And so working with the SDBA and working with Venture Connect to inspire that reinvestment. Think about workforce development. One way that shows up is by making sure that we have the infrastructure that people need to be able to pursue their entrepreneurial work. And so we have a social enterprise solution to this market gap of community work hubs, making sure there is on-demand space available. We've done that now through co-location with Community Futures and a business innovation center that is taking shape. Through the sale of regular memberships, hot desks, and on-demand meeting space, we're then able to use that to subsidize low and no cost space for community groups who need places to meet and carry out their good work. Another way that we show up in community in pursuit of those mandate areas is through collaboration with partners, and workforce housing is something that has been at the front of our work in recent years. We've taken a lead role, governance relationship with the Sunshine Coast Affordable Housing Society that has us then on the steering committee of the Housing Action Table and providing executive oversight to the staff and contractors that we bring in there. Our focus as we've moved into that and as that project has taken shape can be much more now around the missing middle housing, that attainable workforce housing. As we know, I just put the one stat up there. I mean, almost 80% of the housing inventory is single detached houses on the coast. And that's challenging as we think about young frontline workers who are needing a space to be here and to serve community. Finally, then, if we think about the way that we also showcase the coast writ large and support small business, we partnered with Small Business BC and developing a regional page in their BC marketplace. A unique page featuring Sunshine Coast businesses that's promoted throughout the province with the intention not only then of letting locals here know about the great small business, but as others are researching in advance of their trip, letting them know not to spend before they get here. We've got everything you need for goods and services. There are 72 Seashell businesses featured on that page, but 170 from the coast writ large. Each of them received direct one-on-one assistance from us in building out their individual listings. And so, that's ways in which our work shows up in community, but we do recognize that we haven't been great at communicating that to all of you. And that sort of came to a head then when we had this meeting at the beginning of October between Scredo and the funders to say, where are we at? We haven't heard enough from you, Scredo. And what we heard in that meeting was very much then about reestablishing regular communications, ensuring that we are compliant with the terms of the existing service agreement, the great importance of demonstrating value for all of the partners, and the serious need for accountability in our governance and our operations. We heard that, took that to heart, and the board set out to earnestly work in that direction. And since that meeting, we've built out a robust board calendar with all of the key dates and deliverables from that service agreement. We're holding regular meetings. We're enhancing our governance through the development of good policies and process, and reporting has been brought up to date. We have a new strategic plan for 2024 through 2026, and we've developed a 2024 work plan that we are here to present for feedback today. With respect to that strategic plan, it really is about aligning our goals with your strategic plan, reporting on our activities, articulating our value to community, and making sure that we are accountable to not only our funders, but the public as well. It runs across 3 key result areas: entrepreneurial governance, strengthening the local economy, collaboration and partnerships, there are 11 strategic goals that fit under those categories. The work plan has been created to advance those key result areas and strategic goals. It is aspirational in its intent, but absolutely presented in draft form as an invitation for feedback. We've built it to a scale that is consistent with the mandate and contributions that are defined in the service agreement. And there is room in it to scale up as we are able to secure additional funding from non-local government sources. It is built around a $624,500 budget, 40% of which is dedicated to society operations, which includes then staff, governance enhancement, general administrative expenses, but fully 60% of it, $375,000, directly into programs and projects. In terms of the revenue of $626,000, the largest share, 57%, does come from our service agreement contributions. But we are building out the other three streams from special project funding, from grant funding, and from earned income through things like Fuse. Significant focus areas in our work plan are investment attraction, society governance, and regional economic development planning. Let's touch on just a few of the projects that are in there. First and foremost for us, we are really excited to, alongside you, co-create a regional economic development plan in 2024. We think it's critical that we create that vision and of where we want to be. It is one thing to have a mandate that says you work in these areas. To what end is obviously the natural question. That new regional plan would support then revising the current service agreement that is set to expire December 31st, 2025. Again, it's a project that could scale up or down. We've had conversations with folks at the Island Coastal Economic Trust, through the Rural Economic Diversification and Infrastructure Program at the province of BC and Pacifican. Currently, we have it scoped as 80% funded from external sources. So once you build a plan, then you need to go off and find the money and find the investment to bring it in. And so the development of a more robust investment attraction strategy, making sure that we are supporting industry and growing our economy. As we know, all local governments are facing increased expense challenges. How do we build up that revenue? And so developing a marketing plan for investment attraction that is aligned with a refreshed Scredo communication strategy, maintaining our dedicated investment attraction site. And I think really importantly, designing the programs that will help us to develop and manage leads that can be converted into prospects and ultimately become those deals that generate economic growth and employment for the region. In addition then to focusing on that investment attraction, how do we at home here investigate and instigate those new projects? And so our board has a vision of bringing together expert working groups to support entrepreneurs in those emerging areas for direct investment. And what we've also learned is that when people have those great ideas, there's value in supporting them with stuff that is seemingly as simple, but often complex for those who don't engage in it with grant writing support. There is capital out there to be brought into our community. We want to make sure that we are assisting those entrepreneurs to launch and scale their businesses. So finally, then, if we have a plan for the region, we have a thought of how to attract investment into it, being mindful of how money moves around once it's here. We want to, in 2024, undertake a review of some of those underlying issues that are causing some low tender participation in projects for local governments. And so thinking about procurement and thinking importantly about social procurement or impact procurement. And so making sure that those objectives and requirements are well understood, and then doing the market sounding to get the feedback from how those projects are understood and how they can be improved to encourage more local and regional private sector participation. Alongside that, we want to make sure that we are implementing some of those best practices for vendor outreach that we helped draft and publish through the BC Social Procurement Initiative, as well as providing direct assistance and training for vendors to help them identify, develop, and demonstrate their social value criteria so that they can respond to those bids well. In terms of next steps, it's important for us then that we understand from you if there's anything more required in order to secure the 2023 and collect this 2023 funding contribution. We want to hear from you about the plan that we have in place for 2024 and what steps would be required to approve that plan. And then as Mickey mentioned as well, we're just starting to work ourselves now towards a spring AGM. And as part of that process, we'll be recruiting new directors and want to understand how the district would like to be engaged in that process. And so that's me talking for a long time, which is not something I'm often encouraged to do. And so I appreciate your patience as I work through that and want to now just put it to you for questions that myself and the directors can answer.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Colin, for speaking. And Mr. Yates, you didn't tell me about our new hire at the District of Seashell. welcome, Mr. McKinley, to this meeting. I'm assuming you're here for this portion. Great. No problem. Welcome, welcome. Thanks for coming. So, council, could I ask that we have a motion to receive the verbal and written reports from Scredo? Thank you, Councillor Toth, Councillor Rowe, all in favor. Now, any questions? Colin did mention 3 pieces there that he's asking of us. So if we have questions and or any kind of direction in reference to those 3 questions, that may be helpful. So anybody on committee like to start? Councillor Shepherd?
Thanks very much, Colin, and to the rest of the Scredo board members for appearing. I just wanted to remind council that, you know, from the beginning of our term, the things we were looking for from Scredo were to come to council to present their plans ongoing, and to have discussion about where things, for instance, communication had really fallen off. And we hadn't heard. Thirdly, to have a bit more input from the funders on governance. And I think Scredo have really been working on governance issues over the past year. So in my opinion, Scredo have come forward. They have delivered on what we originally asked for. It's taken a while, but it's moving. They've certainly delivered all of the reports that hadn't been delivered in terms of financials, all the other deliverables in the service agreement when council started. So I believe, and please anyone from staff, if you, I trust I've got this correct, that Scredo have delivered all of that information and are now looking at going forward. So just to keep that in the back of your mind as we look over the work plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. So basically what you're saying is they've met the criteria by which we've asked them to present to us in the work plan.
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from council? Councillor Bell?
Yes, through the chair, I just want to be clear, what is our goal here today? What do you want to come away with today? We're looking at the work plan. There's a lot here. There's discussion that we'll need to do going forward. So what are the timelines? Kind of what are the steps? I guess let's start with today. What do we want to do today? What do you want to come away with from us today? Would be helpful.
Thank you. And so first and foremost, as Councillor Shepherd was mentioning, just wanted to confirm that we have now lived up to those requirements in the service agreement so that we can clear up 2023. And kind of wanted to put it back to you for that feedback on the work plan, because we really have recognized through these comments over the past few months and working more closely together that this is going to work best in partnership and in close collaboration. And so these are the best ideas and projects that our board has agreed on that align with our strategic plan and with what we understand to be in each local government's strategic plans and map on the mandate areas in the service agreement. We've had the great benefit of having Councillor Shepherd there as our liaison at our board meetings and been able to get input from him, but wanted to provide that opportunity for you for any further clarification about what you're seeing in the plan or just ideas that you wanted to put in front of us about things that we might want to consider as we're moving forward with it. And so some discussion about the work plan. And then as a second part of that, for us to understand then what is the process for you to provide approval of that plan? Because that is something, again, that is in the service. We will come to government, present the work plan, that it will be approved by the funders. And so understand that.
Okay.
Great.
You wanna
And a
continue?
follow-up?
Sure. Yeah.
Thanks. So at this point, it's your approach, it's a regional wide approach. This is where you're coming from. We're not looking at a sub-regional approach. It's a regional approach. And where are you at in the process? How many have you made presentations to all of the governments at this point?
Thank you. We were with the town of Gibsons last night. We are at Sunshine Coast Regional District tomorrow. We are still just awaiting notice from the nation about when we can present.
Okay. Good. So the plan will be at some point to look at all of the feedback and put that into a document to see if there's themes, that kind of thing, and then come back and present it as an
Yeah.
overall plan?
Don't know that we will necessarily need to come back and present another version of the
Okay.
plan. But certainly over the course of the next year, we are looking for some of that more robust engagement with all of the governments to develop the longer term plan. So setting aside the 2024 work plan, what does it look like to have a regional economic development plan that looks out 10 years into the future? I think our experience has been, and we've heard from local government, is there's lots of good work in different spaces. I might liken to that to doing a lot of cartography. We've mapped out what's happening in different areas. Now, where do we want to go? And, you know, we have thoughts about that. That's what you have as well. And so how do we come together as a group in a way that is similar and as inspiring as was when you got together into those water summits?
Thank you. I have other questions, but I'll let others speak and I'll come back.
Sure.
Thank you.
Councillor Shepherd.
I don't want to monopolize if anyone else have any questions, but I'll fire out a few. Just quickly on the work plan, the overview, it's a 40-60 split on administration costs versus program expenditures. Is that typical? Is there a benchmark? You look at other economic development agencies?
Yeah, I haven't found a consistent ratio across them, and I think that one could also repackage that 40% where you started talking about the communications work that you're doing. A lot of that is very programmatic, and that is the promotional work. For the sake of clarity in how we operate internally and stuff, and we think that those sort of supporting activities that exist in the business as being administrative and in-house is maybe a better explanation of the sort of 40% in-house to do the 60% work with outside.
If you could just remind me, it's in terms of who is working at Scredo ongoing, it's really you as executive director, and now you have a sort of program manager or?
So there's certainly, yeah, we have a qualified as 1.8 FTE, but that feels wonderfully inhuman. So there's myself as executive director and Yaro Dertina, who's been managing small business programs for us. But as we move into this next work plan and step away from quite so much work at the enterprise level and more, the title might change. So it's myself and Yaro, and then we bring in contract support as needed.
Sorry if I could just one or two more questions. Just on the work plan. I think the other question I had is if you could describe the different roles of a Chamber of Commerce, because that's now unified across the coast, and how their mandate will differ from Scredo's.
I would be happy to. I wouldn't mind just looking to the gallery though, because we do also, one of the things that we've been able to achieve at Scredo is we've had representation from each of the chambers on our board of directors. But also we do have Gaetan Royer here with us today, who's been part of the transition committee as the three chambers look to merge into one. So I just wonder if Gaetan would like to speak to that, or I'm joining you in.
Being a bit of a bridge between the two organizations as the chair of the merger task force. Our approach going forward is likely going to be the chamber is going to provide services to existing businesses. And that is the benefits plan, organizing events and inquiries from existing businesses. And I think the best way to describe Scredo is that they're looking at growing the business sector, attracting investment, attracting newcomers, and also assisting those newcomers in establishing themselves. And I think the presentation covered a few examples of that. So that's the most natural division of responsibility.
Councillor Bell.
Oh, I'm back.
You are back. Yeah. I'm sure
Okay,
council will let me know.
So the other questions are just mainly, I see two things that come out for me is I see it as a regional economic development service, number one, and your connectors. That's what I see, the two primary things, and along with the overarching. But there's a couple of questions that I had just around the work plan. And let's see, page 6. Let's see, what have I got on the work plan there? Around collaboration and partnerships. A couple of things that I'm wondering whether this might fit in with the SCRD or Scredo. Is there is there something around setting up a regional system for data collection, key data collection? So I find that many times, you know, we're looking for data. And I'm wondering whether this could be the house, if you like, for that data to be available. Don't know what that looks like right now, but it's just something to think about that I had in mind.
Indeed. And so later in the work plan, there's some acknowledgement of regional indicators. And so
Okay.
for us, that sort of started as a way of how do you paint a picture of a region that is ripe for investment, getting beyond some of the sort of conventional GDP measures into all the other ways the community shows up as well and inviting for investment. But also then recognize through the work that we do, and to your point of how we collaborate and work with others, in participating at a Thriving Communities table and working closely with the foundation. We're aware of things like the Vital Signs report that will be coming out next year, but also holds a number of different data sets within it. And then a growing conversation through that Thriving Communities table about what would it look like to paint a picture of the community across something like the social determinants of health, whereby not only will we have a robust picture of what the community looks like, but we'd also have a bit of that sort of mapping exercise of who's doing work in what space. And so that if one can imagine housing indicators coming up through a housing action table, transportation indicators coming up through TRAC, Electric Vehicle Association, whoever might be working in that space, childcare table that is already working closely together. The ability to roll all of those indicators up into one place where they are held will not only paint the robust picture, but show who's working where and where's the opportunity to connect when so many of those issues really are overlapping. And so Scredo is more than prepared to be the host for that, but we are also showing up in partnership at a number of those other tables. So
Excellent.
happy
Thank
to be
you.
your conduit in that, though.
Yes, excellent. Any more questions? The other one I was wondering about, as we're collaborating regionally, is there any opportunity to look at reducing regulations and making it easier to conduct business? So, you know, either suggesting alternatives by communicating what the differences are, or standardizing rules and regulations across individual jurisdictions. Don't know again whether that's a lot of work, I know, but I'm just planting the seed for that because that's kind of where I see a great opportunity for us, especially from a regional perspective.
Yes, and so thank you for that. I mean, to give one live example of that, district has to be applauded for updating all of its film industry policies. We are having conversations right now with InFilm, which is the Island Film Commission, who recently have been putting training opportunities in place on the Sunshine Coast. You may have seen some of that online. They've been talking to us about all the calls that they get for why is filming different in Seashell versus SCRD versus Gibson's. And I think there is a role to play for us in bringing those together and saying, here are those differences. How might we start to knock down some of those barriers so that it is seamless, so that we can build more industry across the coast? So that would be one example, but the answer would be yes. I think it's a great opportunity.
Excellent. Thank you, Colin. And my last question is just around, in terms of your, let me see, page 6 as well, collaboration and partnerships. In our strategic plan, the District of Sechelt, we have something around community safety and well-being, and it's working with grassroots community partners to grow sustainable food security. Small agricultural farms are huge in all of the areas of the coast, some more than others, but I'm wondering if that fits into this picture in terms of one of your stakeholders that you may work with and bring them in from a regional perspective as far as opportunity goes.
Absolutely. And again, what we've tried to do is be mindful of where we are a lead organization and where we are showing up as one of many. And so Scredo 2 years ago supported the One Straw Society in doing a review of where we're at with the 2014 agricultural area plan. Coming out of that work, One Straw established a food systems action table. Scredo is at that table. And so we work with partners at One Straw through the Farmers Institute, as well as with individual growers and the farmers markets to make sure that we are involved in those food systems conversations.
Great, thank you. I'm sorry, one more question? I might as well get it out. I'm sorry. Oh, have you? Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah, my other question just is around, just perhaps a recommendation. I know everybody's time is busy, but in terms of who is part of your org chart, whether it's volunteers, just a suggestion that you might want to have somebody from each one of the governments to be on the Scredo, whether it's not a board, but just sit in as a volunteer for some of the meetings, that kind of thing. so that they are part of like Adam's role, and which is great to have that firsthand role. He's right there. He's, you know, close to the action. So it's just a thought, if that's a possibility. And I know everybody's busy. I'm certainly not suggesting that that's a possibility, but that's something just to consider. And then my final thing is, where does the accountability plan fit in this? It may not be there right now. Is it going to be an MOU that's going to lay out the details, or what's that going to look like? It may be too early to ask, but just curious.
I think that's certainly part of the conversation that we're now having as we go around to governments. Say, you know, what we tasked with was coming up with the strategic plan and the work plan, how we all want to work together to make sure that those accountabilities are codified, is part of that ongoing discussion that we're having with you and the other governments.
Thank you.
Okay, Council, I was giving Councillor Bell some latitude because I did not see any other hands. Are there any other hands for questions now? Councillor Rowe.
Or thank you for bringing this forward. Just so everyone knows, I'm not anything going on here. I'm fighting a migraine. So if I put my head down and close my eyes, you're not boring me. Thank you for bringing this forward. I like the way this work plan is laid out. Specifically that there's actions attached to the goal. They're really clear. And you've put in both qualitative and quantitative success indicators. So this is going to be a document that's really easy to measure success against, I think. So thank you for that. And it's clear and you know, not overly full of words that aren't needed necessarily. Anyways, I digress. A question about revenue sources, earned income. Is that from like the Fuse hubs? Anything else that?
Not yet. No,
No?
I mean, there's a
Okay.
little bit of this come in that category right now around sponsorships when we've run
Mhm,
some campaigns, but it's the smallest portion of it. It's
Okay.
Fuse memberships.
Okay, great. And thank you so much for the clarification or the chamber. That's great. That's really helpful to me. Thanks.
Any other questions of council? Thanks, Councillor Rowe. Councillor McLaughlin.
Yes, thank you to the chair. Thank you, Colin, so much for coming. I learned a lot. Excited about the future, about how you proceed. I've noticed with the chamber becoming regional now, we kind of have almost like two regional economic development organizations now by just pure circumstance. And I would like to kind of maybe draw that distinction a little more. I don't want to see you become a subset of that. I really appreciate your innovation and your grassroots projects you have going on. And we're just learning about some of them today. Maybe some kind of chart to illustrate those things to let us really know all the fingers you have in all these pots and pies. And I mean, you must be a Superman because you're only one person and here you are doing all this. So I like what you're doing. I'd like to see you focus on the social enterprise part and maybe counting local jobs as one of your indicators, because I think that's really important, rather than have you worry about attracting a major regional industry to the Sunshine Coast or something like that. I would rather see the chamber focus on that sort of thing and have you help just fertilize and grow all the good smaller things we have going on here. Well, that's just my feedback. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Shepherd.
I'll just pick up on something Councillor McLaughlin touched upon, which is the number of jobs. I guess going forward, I'd really like to remind council, Sechelt contribution to Scredo's budget is just over $100,000 a year. So we have to do the right thing by our residents, taxpayers. We need to see going forward, what is the hard economic benefit from Scredo's efforts. So I'll really look forward to semi-annual, annual reports on what the benefit is to Sechelt from those efforts, those investments, to really see it in a quantitative form. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Shepherd, and speaking to our fiduciary responsibility as a council. Any other questions from council? Mayor Henderson.
Thank you, Chair. I think I'd just flag a couple of things.
First of all, I noticed in the strategic plan, the reference to goal 1.1 is to be a professional business consultancy. And that to me highlights something really important, that I think business development, this entity is about promoting investment, promoting prosperity and well-being. But I worry that that phrase to me signifies that we're a commercial enterprise and therefore we're competing with people that are in fact in business. So I'd flag that for the board more than for us to maybe revisit that, to make it clear that we're not in fact setting up Scredo to be a competitor to the business sector. Second thing, I think we know where this is going, that it's got to go to, guess what, a staff report, because there's a lot of pieces to this, including the need for a multi-pronged approach from the different funding agencies. And somehow we have to link that together and align it with each of the 3 or 4 funding sources. Yeah, I think, and I'll look forward in those staff reports and subsequent discussions to the oldest and thorniest issue, which goes back to your day, Councillor Inkster, and before, and that is, what are we going to do different about promoting Hillside? We've been promoting Hillside for as long as I've been in Sechelt, 20 plus years. I'd like to know if it's in here as a work plan, which I support, but what are we going to do to crack that nut that is different than what we've tried in the last few decades? Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions from council that are present here? Councillor Toth, you haven't said anything? Are you busy?
Thank you, Chair. I don't really have any questions per se. I appreciate the information that's being presented here. It's clear, it's easily understood. I like the look of what's being proposed in the work plan. Since the mayor brought it up, I'm gonna contemplate overnight a little bit about the Hillside portion of things, and maybe I'll ask the question tomorrow instead, given an opportunity to think about it for a little bit. But I know that the Hillside portion of things is technically under a separate contract at the moment, but that's prime industrial real estate that's going to waste on the Sunshine Coast. So, thanks.
Thanks for that question in reference to Hillside and the regional district portion that we will be part of tomorrow. Any other questions, council? So council, you've heard from Councillor Shepherd prompting us to have questions and or direction and or clarification to Scredo. If there is not any more of that, we will proceed forward. But this is a good opportunity to ask any other questions for clarification. I'm assuming based on the mayor's comments that we'll have a recommendation at the end of this presentation, because we are requesting a staff report, or we should request a staff report. That having been said, I would ask if staff has any questions of Scredo, because they are in front of us. I know there's been other meetings that have included staff, but this is a public opportunity in reference to council questions. Have your own questions. Looking to the staff table. Not seeing any questions. Maybe that will come later as part of the staff report. Sometimes they ask questions within those. Looking at council again, because we have been talking a lot about Scredo over the last number of months. It's been a topic for us, and we're very happy that you've come. Seeing no questions, Councillor Bell?
No more questions. Just a comment in terms of this is a really great job. I just want to support what's been said so far. The fact that it's very measurable. I think that I know that I'm always pounding that drum here, but it's so important. It's all I remember was when I had a CEO, all I remember him saying is what gets measured gets done. So it's just like it's in my brain. So measurable also helps us get the data, and it also helps us tell the community what you do. So it's great that you put it in these terms. Well done, and thank you.
Councillor McLaughlin, thanks.
Yes, thank you through the chair. I would just ask that Scredo look again at our new strategic plan. There's things in there that are new, especially a focus we didn't have before on environmental aspects. And to me, you know, nature is why people come here. It's very important. It's not something typically we focus on when we're thinking about economic strategies. But I think going forward in the world we have with climate change and the economic changes we've had due to COVID and such, it could be an exciting, positive future. And I know you have some innovative ideas about the donut economy, and it's not Tim Hortons, it's something else. So if you're interested, you can look that up. So if you could just highlight that and maybe look at that through a lens, that'd be great. Thank you.
The council has asked the questions of the presenters here. I would ask you before you leave, whether you've heard any contradictions or you want clarification from council and because of the different questions and instructions that you've been given.
Nothing that seems conflicting for me. I'll look to my board. Any additional clarity? No. Great. So then we'll just look forward to then the dialogue that flows from this. And again, really want to thank you for the opportunity to be here. Okay, there we go. We've one more of our directors on the screen.
Yes, yes, I think there is a letter that we have, we've had to provide information before the end of March. So I think that's something else we'd request council deal with. And the three questions that Colin put forward, right? The finalization of the payment for 2023 and then 2024 going forward and the AGM. So how do you want to be involved with the helping us find directors for the AGM? So those are the three questions that we've come with. And that's what we'd like you to deliberate on and get back to us.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. The four of you, I wanted to thank you for your passion and your volunteerism as you leave today. And we certainly appreciate it. Thanks for coming. And council, before we move on to the next items, I'm looking for a motion, if in fact we need one, to trigger staff report. Councillor Toth.
Let me read out what I got and see if it makes sense to staff or if it's necessary at all, which would be a motion to refer the Scredo information to staff or a report to confirm compliance with the funding agreement and report back on next steps to support Scredo's 2024 work plan.
Okay, can I have a second or two that? Councillor Shepherd, next to Councillor Toth. Staff. Clarification? You're comfortable with that? Okay. Any other questions of that? Speak to that particular motion. Council, all in favor? Okay, thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Okay, council, we have 4 fourth quarter reports in front of us. I would ask that we move receipt of all 4 reports. Thank you, Councillor Rowe. Councillor Shepherd? Okay, sure. Thought your hand was up. All in favor of reception of those 4 reports? Thank you. Any questions on those 4 reports? I know that staff puts a fair amount of work into them and they may hope to receive questions as a validation of the hard work they put into the reports. I'm not sure. Any questions? Councillor Shepherd?
A question through the chair to engineering. Could I just get a recap of where we are with the airport topping of the trees, which allows safer landing and use of the lights that have already been put into the onto the runway? Thank you.
Yeah, through the chair, we've collected the survey data to facilitate determining which trees need to be cut down. So there's a question between the surveyor and our consultant for the airport work on what the actual limits are and approaches. So we reached out to that consultant for a response. I don't know where the consultant is. I hope he's doing well, but he hasn't responded to anything so far. So I think we're going to have to give him a period of time. And if not, we'll have to go with a conservative assumption to move forward to get the tree topping done. So I've given him kind of till the end of this week to respond. And if not, we're going to have to look at moving forward in another way because we're not getting a timely response from the consultant.
Follow up to that. So, so that's the consultant who's doing the airport management master plan?
No, it's the consultant who did the design for the runway extension. So that's Associated Engineering.
Okay, and if you don't get an answer from by the end of the week, because now it's been a couple of weeks, is there anyone on the airport committee who can help you with that, or is that? I'm just wondering, not real with that estimate or just.
Yeah, again, through the chair, I think it's one of those technical things. Perhaps the consultant who's working on the airport master plan might know somebody who can answer the question. So yeah, we'll try and get some answers from them, but we could move along with a conservative estimate that would be safe. And I mean, it's probably better to remove more trees than less trees anyways, just for future planning. So I think we could move ahead either way. Thank
Mayor Henderson.
Thank you, Chair. It occurs to me, I don't want to see the trees topped, because they'll be back in 3 or 4 years saying we got to top them again. So let's err on the side of being, solving it for a lot longer by taking much more of the tree than, is the minimum topping.
Councillor Shepherd.
This is something we should follow up afterwards, but I think we might run into a problem with the landowner. Maybe not. All right, I'll leave it at that.
Okay, so that's obviously hanging out there. We're not sure with the trees. Any other questions on the 4 reports in front of us? Councillor Rowe.
Hey, thank you through you too. I guess, Director Dillon, there's a hot rumor out there that, we put a hold on Green Court and nothing's getting built there. So is there anything happening is construction moving along or that we're aware of?
Yeah, thank you to the chair. And I invite Director of Planning and Development to tag on to this response afterwards. But there was something incorrect put in the Coast Reporter last week. They said we were holding on service agreements for Green Court and TELUS, which we were not. We've issued those servicing agreements. And my understanding is they're underway with construction as we speak. So that information was incorrect.
Perfect.
Okay, so
Thank you.
thank you. Thank you. So the clarification is that was incorrect information and Green Court is proceeding.
Correct.
Thank you. Any other questions of the reports in front of us? Mayor Henderson?
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to go to page 42, according to my notes here. This is for HR. Question is, I see reference to exit interviews, but I don't see any statistics on the people that have left, whether it's been resignations, retirements, or whatever. I think I'd like to see that as part of our future presentations. It's great that we're hiring people, we're being successful in hiring them, but the other side of that is how many of them are replacements and so forth. So that's one. Leave it there. Oh, my next comment was on airport lighting, but we've already talked about that. Thank you.
Is that request clear? Okay, thanks. Any other questions on the 4 reports in front of us, Council? Councillor Shepherd?
This question is on planning, I guess directed through you to the Director of Planning, one of my favorite developments, the Havies development. I see that they changed consultants working on a new sewer plan. I don't think we've seen any information on them finishing a transportation plan. So that it's probably likely that their permit time, will it run out sort of third quarter 2024? Is that correct?
Through the chair, that is correct that the PLR was extended in October 2023 for the period of 1 year. A preliminary layout review letter can be extended at the discretion of the approving officer if we feel that there is progress being made. It has been extended on more than one occasion to date. Sometimes the justification for that, in this case, including changing engineers, consulting engineers, for example, there's a number of factors there. It's not as simple as to say if it's not done by October 2024, the development ceases to exist, but these are timelines that are designed to gauge whether or not we feel we are moving towards completion or not. And it's ongoing and under review still.
Just a follow-up question. So really, council has no ability to influence that. That's a decision as to whether to extend that again would remain with the subdivision officer, approving officer.
Yes, that is correct.
I saw a hand over here.
Through the chair, I guess my same question is, or similar question is, it can just, this can just go on indefinitely?
It's a,
I mean,
the
it's a-
interesting question. Let's just say it comes to a point where there are some projects that are well on the books, nothing is happening and we don't expect anything to happen. The procedure bylaw, this applies primarily more for rezoning applications. The procedure bylaw has timelines, 1 year. If there's been no progress made, files can't be closed. Typically we do that. Engagement starts internally between planning and engineering, and then we move on and we discuss with developers and see where we're at, where the plans might be, whether or not new applications are required or whether or not applications cease to exist. So there's nuance and it's not a one size answer for
Yeah.
everything.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. It's a good question. We don't really want to tell business what to do, but at the same time, we have some prime pieces of land within Sea Shelf that are sitting there, not being utilized for their highest and best use. So it's a good series of questions. Any other questions here?
Thank you, Chair. I'll go to page 55, again, in engineering, and in this case, wastewater treatment. I want to, I guess I want to talk about down near the bottom, the wastewater flow monitoring. I'm curious to hear more from staff on where we stand. We've got a year of monitoring, but how is that maybe for council's benefit? I think I have an idea, but how does it work once we have, now that we have that data? What are the next steps and what happened in the past?
Through the chair, so once that monitoring flow data is collected, it gets put into the model that Urban Systems is preparing on our behalf. Ouch. And so once that's in place, the model is pretty close to being completed, and actually staff have 3 days of training coming up in February to be trained on the model and how to run the model. And so with all that information, it will give us a tool to more quickly assess the impacts of a new development on our sanitary sewer collection system. So that's how the information is being used.
I may, Chair, then I'd be interested in seeing the history of how that's worked. I know back in round one for me, we had a joint measuring program in place. I don't think that continued subsequently. So I'd be interested though in knowing, because if I'm correct, we get flows from 2 sides.
Through the chair, so I believe the questions specifically within regards to flow monitoring between SNGD and us, right? Is that
Yes,
correct?
yeah.
Okay, so there is monitoring stations in place now, monitoring them. They were not in place for a period of time. We worked with Shishal to put in 2 monitoring stations. We've been collecting that data for about a year now. And we're looking through that data and trying to parse through it right now. Thank you.
If I may, Chair, there's no monitoring, whatever dials, gauges, whatever it's called, we had to put those in?
That's correct.
Because we were doing it in or had plans to do it in 2014. That's why I'm not sure how we do it without those gauges or monitors or whatever, so.
And probably another reason why you'd like the sewage commission
Oh, well.
start up
that-
again, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Most certainly.
Yeah, we'll deal with a couple of those issues, because I'm assuming I
That will
know
go,
what you're looking for.
yes.
Yeah. Use. Okay, any other questions, Councillor Tom?
Thank you. I was actually gonna tag onto that in that I think the monitoring, if I remember correctly, we budgeted for it last term because the monitoring equipment that was in the wet wells was end of life, no longer serviceable, couldn't be easily repaired or maintained. And so I think the idea was to just upgrade all that monitoring equipment, which I think is what we're now getting data from. But I heard the sewer commission mentioned, so I wanted to ask what the status of that is And if we have any idea if we're going to be, if the sewer commission is going to be meeting again anytime soon. Thanks.
Not sure if that's an administrative or political decision, so I'll start with administration.
Through the chair, I'll take a first stab at that, and if anybody else wants to tag along, that's great, but we've made several attempts over the past year to get the sewage commission going again, have meetings, and unfortunately with elections coming up and various events, we haven't been able to get those underway. The latest correspondence I saw from Chief Lenora, is that she wanted to get this going again. So I don't know if we've actually set up dates, but we continue to work on getting that reestablished. And that's all I have at this moment. We're going to keep on trying to set up dates with them.
Okay, so obviously it's a political question then, because that's been asked me. Any other questions? On all four reports, council, seeing none? Looking around, staff's worked very hard on these, okay. I will move then to the number 6, adjournment. Motion 2. Thank you, Councillor Bell. Thank you, Councillor Rowe. All in favor? Thank you. I guess the council